Second Chronicles chapter 35 and 36. Josiah observed the Lord's Passover and slaughtered the Passover lambs on the 14th day of the first month. He appointed the priests to their responsibilities and encouraged them to serve the Lord's temple. He said to the Levites who taught all Israel the holy things of the Lord, "Put the holy ark in the temple built by Solomon, son of David of Israel, since you do not have to carry it on your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and his people Israel. Organize your ancestral families by your divisions according to the written instructions of King David of Israel and that of his son Solomon. Serve the holy place by the grouping of the ancestral families for your brothers, the lay people, and according to the divisions of the Levites by families. Slaughter the Passover lambs, consecrate yourselves, and make preparations for your brothers to carry out the word of the Lord through Moses." Then Josiah donated 30,000 sheep, lambs, and young goats, plus 3,000 cattle for his own possessions, for the Passover sacrifices for all the lay people who were present. His officials also donated willingly for the people. The priests and the Levites, Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Jehiel, chief officials of God's temple, gave 2,600 Passover sacrifices and 300 cattle for the priests. Conaniah and his brothers Shemaiah and Nathanael and Hashabiah, Jael, Jozabad, officers of the Levites, donated 5,000 Passover sacrifices for the Levites plus 500 cattle. So the service was established. The priests stood at their posts and the Levites in their divisions according to the king's commands. Then they slaughtered the Passover lambs, and while the Levites were skinning the animals, the priests splattered the blood they had been given. They removed the burnt offerings so that they might be given to the groupings of the ancestral families of the lay people to offer to the Lord, according to what is written in the book of Moses. They did the same with the cattle. They roasted the Passover lambs with fire according to regulation. They boiled the holy sacrifices in pots, kettles, and bowls, and they quickly brought them to the lay people. Afterward, they made preparation for themselves and for the priests, since the priests and descendants of Aaron were busy offering up burnt offerings and fat until night. So the Levites made preparation for themselves and for the priests, the descendants of Aaron. The singers, the descendants of Asaph, were at the stations according to the command of David. Asaph, Haman, and Jeduthun, the king's seer. Also the gatekeepers were at each temple gate. None of them left their tasks because their Levite brothers had made preparations for them. So all the service of the Lord was established that day for observing the Passover and for observing burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord according to the command of King Josiah. The Israelites who were present in Judah also observed the Passover at the time and the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days. No Passover had been observed like it in Israel since the days of the prophet Samuel. None of the kings of Israel observed a Passover like the one Josiah observed with the priests, the Levites, all of Judah, the Israelites who were present in Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem in the 18th year of Josiah's reign. This Passover was observed. After all this that Josiah had prepared for the temple, King Necho of Egypt marched up to fight at Carchemish by the Euphrates, and Josiah went out to confront him. But Necho sent messengers to him, saying, "What is the issue between you and me, King of Judah? I have not come against you today, but I am fighting another dynasty. God told me to hurry. Stop opposing God, who is with me. Don't make him destroy you." But Josiah did not turn away from him. Instead, in order to fight with him, he disguised himself. He did not listen to Necho's word from the mouth of God, but went to the valley of Megiddo to fight. The archers shot King Josiah, and he said to his servants, "Take me away, for I am severely wounded." So his servants took him out of the war chariot, carried him in his second chariot, and brought him to Jerusalem. Then he died, and they buried him in the tomb. Buried him in the tomb of his fathers. All Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Jeremiah chanted a dirge over Josiah, and all the male and female singers still speak of Josiah in their dirges today. They established them as statutes for Israel, and indeed they are written in the dirges. The rest of the events of Josiah's reign, along with his deeds of faithful love, according to what is written in the law of the Lord, and his words from the beginning to end, are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. Then the common people took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. The king of Egypt deposed him in Jerusalem and fined the land 7,500 pounds of silver and 75 pounds of gold. Then King Necho of Egypt made Jehoahaz's brother Eliakim king over Judah and Jerusalem, and changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. But Necho took his brother Jehoahaz and brought him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Now King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked him and bound him in bronze shackles to take him to Babylon. Also Nebuchadnezzar took some of the articles of the Lord's temple to Babylon and put them in his temple in Babylon. The rest of the deeds of Jehoiakim, the detestable actions he committed, and what was found against him, are written in the book of Israel's kings. His son Jehoiakim became king in his place. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. In the spring, Nebuchadnezzar sent for him and brought him to Babylon, along with the valuable articles of the Lord's temple. Then he made Jehoiakim's brother Zedekiah king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord his God, and did not humble himself before the prophet Jeremiah at the Lord's command. He also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear allegiance by God. He became obstinate and hardened his heart against returning to the Lord, the God of Israel. All the leaders of the priests and the people multiplied their unfaithful deeds, imitating all the detestable practices of nations, and they defiled the Lord's temple that he had consecrated in Jerusalem. But the Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word against them by the hand of his messengers, sending them time and time again, for he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they kept ridiculing God's messengers, despising his words and scoffing at his prophets, until the Lord's wrath was so stirred up against his people, and there was no remedy. So he brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their fit young men and the sword in the house of the sanctuary. He had no pity on the young men or young women, elderly or aged. He handed them all over to him. He took everything to Babylon, all the articles of God's temple, large and small, the treasures of the Lord's temple, and the treasure of the king and his officials. Then the Chaldeans burned God's temple. They tore down Jerusalem's wall, burnt all his palaces, and destroyed all his valuable articles. He deported those who escaped from the sword to Babylon, and they became servants to him and his sons until the rise of the Persian kingdom. This fulfilled the word of the Lord through Jeremiah, and the land enjoyed its Sabbath rest all the days of the desolation until 70 years were fulfilled. In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken through Jeremiah, the Lord roused the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia to issue a proclamation throughout his entire kingdom, and also to put in writing, "This is what King Cyrus of Persia says: The Lord, the God of the heavens, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and has appointed me to build him a temple at Jerusalem in Judah. Any of his people among you may go up, and may the Lord his God be with him." And that's the end of 2 Chronicles.